Okay, so picture this. You've been training all year for a marathon and it's finally the big day. You've gotten up early, you've put your lucky shoes on and you're waiting for the starter's gun. It goes off and you start running. What happens next? Well, someone who knows what they're doing. They'll have made a plan. They'll know to keep a steady pace and run their own race. And with that in mind, they'll soon be overtaking the people who sprinted at the start. So what has this got to do with money? Well, your financial life is a little bit like a marathon. That's this episode of Money and a Good Life. Well, we're ready to get racing here. I'm Stephanie Coombs and I'm here with my mate and co-host, Ryan Watson. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, Steph.
And lacing up his shoes next to us is financial advisor Ben Jongebloed. Hello, Ben.
Hi, Steph. Hi, Ryan.
Now, first up, hands up. Who has run a marathon here?
What about a half marathon?
I think that counts. So two hands.
Yeah,
so there we go. You've done one as well, Ben. I went through a running phase. And I found I wanted to, get to 10Ks or whatever. And I found that every single time that I ran that it didn't get easier. I just think that my tolerance to pain got better. And eventually I was like, wait, I don't have to do this. And so I stopped. And I think that was a really good decision for me.
I disagree.
I don't know, but you've obviously, how was your half marathon?
Well, I think there's two people, like we're on a table, there's two people sitting on this side. So my way to get through the half marathon was to not train. So the most I did was 10 kilometres, but then I paid for it for the 6 days afterwards. So, yeah, no.
So you got through it though?
Define how you get through it. But yes, survived.
Well,
survived.
You're here. You made it here, so
exactly
that's very
right.
good. Now, obviously, Ben, we've got you here because you are a runner and you're a financial planner and you reckon that there's a correlation between people who can plan and do amazing races and long distances and good planning. But let's talk first about your running. How did you get into it?
Yeah, I've always been very active. When I was a kid, I love sport. So, right now, put me down in front of the TV and I'll sit there and watch any sport. But as long as I can remember, I've always been involved, whether it be little athletics, school carnivals. I played a lot of local footy, and with that comes pre-season running. So there's a bit of a love-hate relationship at times to running. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not as enjoyable. But yeah, I've always enjoyed running sort of throughout the summertime and whenever I can.
And so as you became an adult, it obviously became something that was a bit more of a passion for you. And you've run a couple of marathons.
Yep.
But you've had different lead-ups between them, which I think is kind of where the interesting correlation between money and good habits and running comes through. So talk through some of those different lead-ups.
Yeah, so my first one, I was living overseas at the time and it was 2019. I thought, okay, let's, I was playing footy over there and got a little bit sick of that. Just, bit of a sore body and didn't want to do that anymore. And I still needed a bit of a competitive edge. So a mate of mine, we got our heads together and thought, let's have a crack at a marathon. It'd always been a bucket list of mine. And so we did that. Off no plan, just thought we'll go out and start do a few runs and see what happens. Got towards near the start of it and I got injured and I could have got through it, but it ended up getting cancelled because of COVID, which is a blessing in disguise.
So you got away with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So fast forward 2 years later, was Melbourne 2021. So still doing a little bit of COVID, but the marathon I'd set my sights on again. Similar thing happened. Didn't really have much of a plan. Thought I'd go and do a bit more running. I thought I'd learnt from the last one, but I hadn't. And then, got nearly to the start line. Again, it got postponed, but didn't get to the start line again. So we scratched that one off. Next year, 2022, I thought, okay, I'm going to have a bit of a plan here. I went online, found an online program and was able to work through that and got to the start line. Gold Coast 2022 was my first marathon. Had a goal of 3 hours 30, around 3 hours 23. So yeah, quite a...
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, inside that, I was very pleased. 3 months later, I did Melbourne 2022 again. So went through that and I just wanted to run a PB. I thought, okay, I've done one. I can do a little bit better than that this time and run 3 hours 13. So yeah.
And so, Steph, when BJ says a plan, he means a plan. I think he's been quite humble, obviously working with BJ day in, day out. When he puts his mind to something, he dedicates himself to it.
Yeah, because my plan when I was running, it was just, don't eat as many chips. And if you put the shoes on, you're kind of there. And I eventually almost got to 10Ks.
Yeah.
And then because I just wanted to run for as long as I could. And I was like, all right, I got to 9.5 Ks. And I was very sore from that the next day. I'm like, well, next week I can do 10. But unfortunately for me, it was near enough, close enough. Never got to 10Ks. Okay. 9.5 is the longest I've ever run in one stint.
So first thought, BJ, what would be your first recommendation for Steph then, in terms of just to pull the shoes back on?
Just go out and just not look at kilometres this time. Just enjoy it enjoy it.
Enjoy it. Yeah, there's a big inverted commas around enjoy it. Yeah.
But just go out and take time and take distance away. I think that's the easiest place for me to not like. I love data, but I try and remove.
I'm surprised by that. You look like someone who likes data.
I try and remove data where possible. So we know that not all data is good data. So just take time away and take the kilometres away, and rather than having to force yourself to do it, I think sometimes it might not either, but it might come a bit more naturally as to easing into it.
And I know, BJ, you've helped a couple of other people around the office in terms of train for marathons. You're a big one for running within yourself too, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We like to compare ourselves to other people a lot. So, when it's just about trying to find what works for you. We've got a few people
There's a bit of a common theme there, isn't there, Steph, on this podcast?
Yeah, well, I think the idea of running your own race, right, is what we said earlier, and that isn't just about when you're running marathons, it's also about, your financial situation too. It's funny, there are actually, I can see the parallels here. And when you had a plan, obviously your performance got a bit better, but then you stepped it up a notch, didn't you?
Yep. It was after Melbourne. I ran 3 hours 13, and a friend of mine said, you can run sub 3. And sub 3, I guess in a marathon world, is always like the elusive, to get under sub 3 is
fast.
Yeah. So I just never thought that was possible. So I thought, okay, the only way that that's ever going to happen is if I reach out for help. Might be able to get there by myself, but it's just going to make it so much easier if I go and get someone who knows what they're doing. So I reached out to an online coach. They're based here in Melbourne, and ran my next 2-3 marathons actually. Under their guidance.
Wow, that's like quite a lot of time to knock off. What was the time between your online marathon and your first one that you did with a trainer? Was there like a year between races or?
No, so it was October through to, it's probably 9 months.
Yeah, right.
Probably, 9 months.
Right. So what was the running coach doing? They just improved your plan, or they made it more rigid?
Improved it, understood what I was capable of, what else I could do as well, and just trained in a different way. So in terms of, we look at, slow runs, recovery runs versus speed. So understanding what I was lacking. So for me, I was probably lacking a little bit more speed. I just thought to do a marathon, you just got to run distance. But to get faster, you also have to run the distance, but be able to run faster in itself.
So let's talk about discipline, because I think that discipline is something that we all think that you need a lot of in order to reach your goals.
Discipline, accountability.
Yep. And people often think that that's the only thing that you need to reach a goal, and we put a lot of emphasis on self-control and denigrate anyone who we think is lacking self-control, but there's more to it than just self-discipline, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Discipline does play a very big part. It's important. I've noticed that with being disciplined in my training schedule, but I think motivation is a really big impact as well. So understanding sort of what the goal is, what it means to you, why you do it. We talk about with our clients around, we want to get to know them specifically, like why they want to buy that house or why they want to go on that particular holiday, or, when they want to retire, what that means to them. And I think having that as your motivation, or that driver, plays a very big important part in that.
And for you, what was your motivation to get running?
To keep fit, to keep active, and probably the bigger one at the time was post-footy. I just needed some competitiveness,
Bit of a challenge?
Yeah, bit of a challenge, yeah.
I remember there's been times in the office, Steph, you do the morning coffee, and BJ, how are you? What have you been up to? He's done a 30K run before he gets into work. It very much puts you back in your place.
If I did that, you'd have to put me in a wheelbarrow to get me in the door.
As we said, it gets easier.
Yeah. Talking on the subject of motivation, did having a running coach help you get a little bit more motivated when you had that other point of accountability?
Yeah, it definitely did. I think I'm very structured, so I love. We joked about it earlier, but anyone who knows me knows how structured I am. So I think running coach just understood what I wanted and how it could motivate me. It's really important for me to have good systems in place to help, because motivation, while it's important, it's not always there. We know in the middle of Melbourne, so middle of winter in Melbourne, June, July, it gets tough to get out of bed. It's harder to do that than in the summertime.
And you touched on earlier, BJ, you said sitting in the thought about what you wanted to do. So you'd also made the mental commitment to do the work, didn't you? Because I think I asked you a couple of weeks ago, what happened when you turned up to your marathon coach and you hadn't done the work, and you looked at me like, I'm an idiot. I did the work. Like, you never turned up. But you'd made the commitment. I don't want to talk about chat. You'd made the commitment to improve.
Yeah. I knew what I wanted to do. I was working with an expert who could help me get there. So I trusted the process that they'd put in place. And in the middle of winter, I know it's hard to get out of bed. So my Monday runs are always the same. It's always an easy run. My Tuesday run's always speed. So I know it's roughly what it's going to be like. I run in the morning because the day can get away from you. And if it might be an hour run, by the end if you run in the afternoon, you might only have 45 minutes left in the day. I get my clothes out the night before. I get my shoes out. If have food or drink, I'll get that out all ready to go. So while the motivation sometimes can be lacking, there's just less barriers.
And it's interesting, Steph, obviously, amongst the tribe, BJ's been a really positive influence. So there's been a couple of other tribe members who've done marathons since. There's one person I'm thinking of mine, but I won't mention. And then even a run club on a Monday night. Yep. So the impetus behind that. So it's something that BJ hasn't pushed upon others. He's just on his journey, and they've naturally been drawn to go on it as well.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You're the people that you hang around with, right? And that's the danger, is if you're in a workplace where everyone's going out for afternoon beers, suddenly you're someone who's having afternoon beers. But if you find yourself in a healthy group of people who are trying to sort of do the right thing by their mind and body, it's funny, that can actually bring you up quite a lot too.
Exactly right. So, the Monday night run club.
Yeah, I tell you what, there was no Monday night run clubs in any media organisation I've been a part of. So the only thing we were running away from were our problems. What about you, Ryan? Are you someone who goes and uses coaches? Is that something that you use to motivate yourself?
Oh, it is in a professional sense. So I've had a leadership coach for 9 going on 10 years now. Wow. So he was introduced to me through our chairman, actually, and it was about professional leadership and development. But what I didn't realise, he was working on me for the first couple of years in terms of understanding myself, logic versus emotion, reactions to things. So I was having a better sense of self and worth, and then that translating to the leadership side. On the personal side, in terms of training and the like, I'm someone who likes to go to the gym and just turn the music up really low. I like a bit of solace when it comes to that. So I don't like to train with others and take my coaching professionally, but leave it to myself personally, and just really like to go and sweat and work myself really hard.
Yeah, when I'm going to the gym, I'm not a runner. I think we've established that, but I did get very heavily.
Can we say yeah?
Oh, maybe. I did find my sport though wasn't running; it was jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I got into that and that is a sport that you have to go into just knowing that you're going to suck forever, and then eventually you'll get so injured that you can't keep going. Yeah. But you have to, and you can't compare yourself to other people who are doing that, because you'll be doing it for 2 years, and then some 16-year-old will come in, some white belt, and just decimate.
What I've heard from people who do it, there's one person I am thinking about in particular, there's a lot of humility in the sucking at it. And that's a big piece, isn't it?
It is. No, it is. It's actually like going in and doing something that you're really bad at, and knowing that you're going to be bad at it does build character. But it can be hard to be motivated. I found sometimes, knowing what a physical class I was going into, I couldn't motivate myself. I would sometimes drag through sheer force of will, but that's not always the best way to motivate yourself. So what should you do when you have no motivation? For
me, it's putting in structures. It's just putting in place things that create less barrier, and going back to understanding the why. Why is it that you're doing? Why is it you're making the sacrifices or doing the things that might be missing out on, or not having that after work beer? Why are you doing that sort of thing?
Is that the same thing for you?
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about it before. I'm a big one for structure, the right habits, because I think BJ can attest. Motivation is finite. It's what you go back to when the motivation runs out. And if the habits and the structure are there, you just do. It's a good place to be.
I think that sometimes when you're working on a really tricky goal, whether it's financial or it's running or it's, improving yourself in jiu-jitsu or whatever, it can feel like you're just sacrificing all the time. It's nothing but sacrifices. It's like, I don't get to do this. I don't get to. Or it's like, I miss out on another afternoon at home chilling out watching TV. How do you reframe that? Because I don't think that's necessarily very helpful.
No, it's definitely not. I think it's good to look bigger picture. So understand sort of what it is, but then break it down. So I always look at, say, a marathon. I don't just solely look at, I want to run 2 hours 50 in a marathon. It's in order to get there, these little steps I hit along the way. So it might be I've got a 10K race in there. I've got a half marathon race in there. I want to get down consistently in a training to a certain number in my speed session. So it's breaking that down. So then you're not looking too far forward. You're not thinking, oh, gee, this is all the sacrifice I'm making.
Bite-sized chunks,
yep,
BJ?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's not always a sacrifice if you look at it differently. It's like, oh, well, I get to work towards this thing I'm really excited about as well.
It's about, we talk a lot about growth versus fixed mindset and changing that narrative. I get to or I've got to. And that's the key thing. And sometimes I think, but BJ can probably even attest to this, it's just do. You put your feet on the ground, stop thinking, put the shoes on and start moving.
And when it comes to finance, it's sort of the same thing, right? Like it's not that I don't get to drive around in a fast car. It's looking at something else like, I get to work towards a lifestyle that I really want.
Yeah, it's what can I change today? What's a positive outcome? There's always things that are within our control. And when we remove the blame, there's always things that we can change. And as BJ said earlier, if we think about why we want to do things, why we want to improve, and when we take responsibility, there's always things that we can do better. And then once we do them, we build confidence.
Now, sometimes you can get too involved in a goal and sometimes the balance goes the other way, right? There can be too much sacrifice. The running is eating too much into your enjoyment of life, or your saving goal is too difficult and it's eating away into your ability to hang out with friends and family and whatnot. When is it okay to look at a goal and maybe adjust things, or do you just power through?
No, I think it's really important to adjust things. If a goal seems too far out of reach and you're like, well, I'm actually probably not going to get there. Habits change and you're like, well, there's no point doing this if I can't get there. We look at it from a cash flow point of view and helping our clients that if they're trying to save X amount a week for a house deposit and that just keeps getting further and further out of reach, things need to change. You need to revisit it quite often. I wouldn't say too often, but you need to revisit it enough to have those regular check-ins.
And sometimes if you can't change the action, BJ, you might have to adjust the goal.
Yep.
If it's, say, you want to buy a house, but it's in an area, maybe that doesn't work. You might need to move further out, different train line, just adjust accordingly.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think that you can just white knuckle your way through something forever. There is a point where you will have to break. And I think that the sooner you recognize it and adjust, then you haven't failed a goal. You've just had to adjust things.
No, because if we think about BJ's marathon story, I won't call him a couple of false starts, but if he hadn't adjusted, then he wouldn't have gone on to do what he's done either.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit of a realist with the upcoming baby. I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be hard for me to put all my eggs into a marathon next year with sort of my life changing a little bit. So
I had pitched you with one of those strollers with the big wheel, the 3-wheel.
Yeah,
that's the first thing everyone's asked. When are you getting one of those strollers?
Yeah. What do you mean when? I thought you'd already have it.
I always think that must be quite an experience for the baby when you've got a fast running dad, because I've seen the guys running and I was just like, that's pretty motorized.
They're just killing it on multiple levels, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And their kid, getting them into go-karts early. It's like that.
Yep.
When you're working towards a goal, you need to keep a bit of an eye on what your progress is. And for running, same thing. Like, are my splits as good as they can be? Am I going fast? Am I going long as I need to be to reaching my goals? But you don't want to over-track your results either, because I think that you miss that on a graph there are peaks and there are also little troughs when you're gradually tracking up. So how often should you check on your results and see how you're going?
Yeah, I think it's important to review data regularly, but review it and analyse it. If we look at, say, someone's cash flow data, we want to have at least 3 months of time frame to make it meaningful. If it's too short, we know some weeks are more expensive than others. So having 3 months gives us enough time to see proper trends in the data to work out what needs to change, if anything.
Yeah, because the worst thing someone could do, right, BJ, is they look at it on a weekly basis and maybe they've had a couple of weeks in a row, or they've had a bucks do or something on a weekend, and whereas 3 months or 13 weeks will give them a better sense of what the actual data is.
My Tuesday sessions are the same. They're all speed. They vary week to week. But some days it can be windy, some days it can be perfectly still. And if you're, looking back historically and going, okay, this Tuesday was different to next Tuesday, and going, I've getting less fit, it just might be different conditions.
Yeah, and again, that graph isn't a straight line. Things go up, things go down a bit, they go up. But I think it's when you sort of take a step back and look at the trend, I think if you're working towards something, you will see that there is a gradual upwards tick.
Yeah.
It's not a flat line, which is important, I think, to keep your spirits high as well. When you have a bad day, when you're sore, when you're tired, when the wind's bad, that you're not just seeing the bad, you can actually see the overall positive too.
Yeah, there's a big piece in training, isn't there, BJ? It's better to do the gym session, turn up, no matter within reason how you do it, than just not to turn up at all. So
Definitely.
In terms of those correlation with money as well, potentially you fall off the financial horse or you have one of those blowout weekends, bit of self-compassion, you turn up Monday and you start again.
Yeah, just don't be one of those guys who comes into the gym and then sits on the weights machine texting. Hate that.
What about the tripod? Where are we at with tripods in the gym? And people,
What? No.
Yeah, apparently there's a lot.
What?
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm in Bondi, but they come around with film crews. They don't, you have to shut down half the gym to get your routine in. Everyone's beautiful there. They don't need it. Well, look, honestly, all this talk about running has actually exhausted me a bit. Thank you, Ben, so much for joining Ryan and I today. And remember, it doesn't really matter what your goal is. It's just good to have a plan. And if you need more money advice, do make sure you follow this podcast so you never miss an episode. Thanks as well to you for being part of this, Ryan.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks, BJ.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Steph.
Advice given in this podcast is general in nature and is not intended to influence decisions about investing or financial products. Our listeners should always seek their own professional advice that considers their own personal circumstances before making any financial decisions.